Hi, JJ. And we can go ahead and get started, JJ.
Ah, cool. Okay, can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Good, perfect. Kia ora everyone and welcome. I'm standing in for Angie, who normally does our webinars, and I haven't done one for a little while, so please be patient with me. I'm feeling a little bit nervous, but I'm sure we're going to be just fine. So this evening we're going to talk about maths in the early years. I don't know about you guys, but it's something that scared me when I was at school. I was never very good at maths, and I always found it was the one subject that I worried about the most. I've spoken to lots of parents in my time as a teacher, and they've had the same feeling. They're not sure if they're doing the right thing for their children, etc. Well, hopefully this webinar will, if I can get it to move. Sam, help me. Can't get the slides to move. Sorry, ladies. One moment, please. Right. I'm just going to flick back through. Sam added a slide for us. Apologies for this. Gosh, not a good start, huh? Okay. Let me turn this on to full screen. Oh, doesn't matter how many times you rehearse something. Right, I'm back. Sorry, everybody.
We can see it.
Okay, let's start that again. Hi, I'm JJ, and tonight I'm going to talk to you about how to teach mathematical concepts to our under fives predominantly through play. Oh my gosh. Sorry, Sam, I'm really fluffing this up now.
No worries. You're good. You're good.
So, as I was saying, when you think about maths, quite often I think we think about sums and times tables and all those tricky things. But maths is throughout everything that we do with our children, from putting on their shoes in the morning and finding two shoes, right through to counting the peas on their plate at dinner time to try and encourage them to eat them. We can also engage children in learning about maths through our various activities and games. Doesn't have to be like these pictures here. It can be while you're baking, while you're doing everything. Oh, that's me. I'm going to slip past that now. So the importance of numeracy in the early years is probably more vital than once children start school, insofar as it sets a mindset and a positive attitude as children develop. So if they're keen on writing numbers, etc., and learning all about that, that's really great. But we can develop that interest in numeracy and in shapes and in colours and all of those things that come under that label, as I said, through our games and activities. Next slide. So one of the things we can do with our children is start with languages, the language of numeracy and maths. So we can talk about a few or many, whether they've got more lollies than you, or whether you've got more than them, whether they've got less than, whether they want a little bit of lunch or a lot of lunch, whether they want half a pizza or a quarter of a pizza or even a whole one, and whether things are equal or unequal. And we can do that during our meal times and things that, you know, those times where we all have something in front of us. And if you've got the same, have you got an equal number of things to the person sitting next to you? It doesn't matter so much if children actually understand what you're talking about or the concept behind it, because what we're doing at this stage, like with all language development, is putting that vocabulary in place. Then as they develop and get older, we can start to actually explain the concepts behind those words, just like we do with other language and vocabulary development. When we're teaching children to say the word cat, for example, we point to the cat. So we do the same with our mathematical language. We show them what it is we're talking about, and over time they take that in. So the other things we can talk about are positional things, before and after. Mummy will be here after lunch. We'll go to the park before you have a nap, and those things. So they start to get that concept there. And also when they're playing with cars, when we notice schema and they're putting things in a line, and we can say, oh, you've put the blue car before the yellow car, or you've put the red one after the blue one, and things like that, to get that language through. Above and below is another one that you can talk about. You can talk about, oh, look, there's an aeroplane up there, that's above us. Lots of different ways of doing that. And in front or behind is probably even easier. You walk in front of me when we go to the park. The dog's walking behind me, that kind of thing. When we start to talk about spatial things, we need to get probably a little bit less technical, because the size of things is often easier to see and understand. So we can talk about the fact that older brother is taller than us, baby is shorter than us. We can talk about wide pavements, narrow pavements, all of those things, and then talk about shapes as they come in. So round or square can be part of that, learning about circles and squares and edges of tables and all sorts of other things. Pointy or curved, probably something that comes in a bit later on with slightly older children, but forks are pointy and spoons are curved, and then you can use that with your shapes. So a circle is curved, a triangle is pointy, so is a square. And again, just really gauging where the children are at with their understanding as you develop that language with them, that they can then use later on as they start to really unpack those concepts themselves. So now we've put together some examples of different learning activities that you might be able to utilize in your day-to-day activities with children. Being able to recognize shapes is one of the key foundations to being able to read and write later on, and to recognize numbers and the shapes of letters, etc. As it says here, you can use puzzles, sequencing activities. We've got a couple of really cool Tureo and counting games where they match the number of pictures to the number, etc., with much older children. But I've also got some that have got some really simple shapes in them that I actually made, which are squares and triangles and stars cut in half, and the children just have to try and match the two halves together. And I've had some success with children as young as about 18 months having a go at that, because it's actually really quite easy for them to match. They may not understand necessarily that they've made a star or a triangle, but they start to begin to understand the concept of those shapes. As I said, we talk about shapes and the different things with children. Again, with slightly older children, we would talk about the number of sides and other things, but we might, with younger children, use a shape sorter. Those Tupperware ones are great. And we might pick a triangle and say, oh, that's a triangle. Oh, well, I can see a triangle over there. And then you might cut their sandwiches in triangles and say, look, I've made a triangle sandwich for your lunch. So that we then, again, we're repeating the language and we're using it in ways that are meaningful for children. And it says here, start with the 4 basic shapes, getting dihecadedrons or whatever they are. I can't even say that word. Things like that's probably a little bit complex for our little ones. This one, the curves and the straight lines, and we see these coming through in children's drawings. And we can talk about what we see when we're looking at children's pictures, for example. So we might say, oh, I love the way you did that big curved circle there. That's so cool. Or that's probably not very good teacher speak, is it? But you can talk about, oh, I like your zigzag lines. That's very clever. I can see them going up and down. And again, you're talking about things using the language of maths. As children get older, again, looking at symmetry, and I'm sure we've all done that butterfly thing where we paint half a butterfly, fold the paper in half, and we've got a whole butterfly. Children, for some reason, really love that, as do adults. Looking in mirrors, I had a small mirror, which was actually not glass. It was just, I think it was just kind of some kind of metal coating. Super cheap from Kmart, and I would put things on the top of it, and the older children would try and draw the shape that they could see, but in the mirror. So if you put a triangle on top, you end up with a diamond. That's quite a good fun activity. They can try and draw their own faces from in the mirror too, and that you can talk about the reflections and symmetry and start again to build that language. Number recognition. I used to play the letterbox game with my son. That was how he learned to recognize numbers. And we would start at our house, which was number 128. And one day we might find all the letterboxes with the number 1 on it. And we would count how many we'd seen on the way to the supermarket. The next day we might pick a number 2, etc. And then we started counting from the neighbour's house, so that we got, 9 and then 130. I think we got to, because I think our row only went up to that. But that's a really cool one, because you can do that while you're out and about. Play-Doh, as it says there, car number plates is a really good one, especially if you're stuck in traffic. You can also draw and write numbers and shapes just about anywhere, in the sand, in flour on your kitchen bench when you've finished baking. Corn flour glue is really good for tracing numbers as well. And again, there's lots of games and activities out there that you can bring in, with the focus of enjoying the game, but that also has those number links in them. I find stories like 10 in the Bed and things like that are really good. I've got one, I think it's called 10 Tricky Dinosaurs, and it counts down the dinosaurs, but I've actually got dinosaurs that go with it, so that the children are interacting with it. And that sort of interaction and manipulating the items that they're playing with helps to cement that information in their brains too. So it has a double thing. It's good fun, and it helps them to learn and retain the information, because again, they're linking it to something that they know. I hope I'm not talking too fast. Sorry, guys. Counting games, rhymes, there's lots of them. 5 Little Ducks, probably loads more that I just cannot remember at the moment. Counting out, as I said, probably not peas, but larger items at Kai time, and just counting them onto the plate, saying children, how many pieces of sandwich have you got today? How many grapes have you got? How many other items, are on your plate, and counting with them like that. Counting how many things you see. It doesn't have to be dogs, obviously. It can be how many yellow flowers or whatever it might be. But the other thing is, as it says here about counting plates when setting the table for dinner, when we're supporting children to start to actually count, we can ask them to find 4 bowls and put them on the table, and start to give them a little bit of autonomy with that counting. Before we get to that, we can count them as we put them on the table and go, right, 1, 2, 3, 4 plates. How many people have I got? Say your 4 names of the people that are going to sit down for Kai, and that hopefully starts to sink in with, even with the younger children. There's lots of other things that you can do around that too. It's like, can you find your socks? Because we need to go to school. You need 2 socks. You need 2 shoes, 1 jumper, 1 pair of pants, etc. And just talking, especially with little children who don't yet have a vast amount of language, just talking about the number of shoes they need to put on their feet, and even counting how many toes they need to put in their sock, etc. Again, just to get that language out there. Spatial skills, quite, sorry, oh, it's my cat. I'm so sorry. I've got to slam the door as the cat scratching at the door. I'm so sorry. It just really startled me. Right, back to where I was. So spatial skills, a lot of it is around not just shapes and how things fit together, but also it brings in those balance and coordination as well as the children develop it. So when we're talking about how tall a tower might be, with a 3-year-old, for example, we can compare it to how tall they are, because then they get some concept of height. When we're working with babies or very small children, that's probably a little bit more than they can begin to take in. Doesn't mean you can't use the language, but they're more likely to understand on top of and underneath, and those more simple words. As children do get older, I love this tower here because it shows the concept of being able to balance the different shapes and how they interact with each other. So when you've got that 3 or 4-year-old that's building the tower and it keeps falling down and they're getting really grumpy with it, you can talk to them about how these shapes fit together and which ones have got flat sides and which ones have got curved sides. And it starts to bring in all of that language that we've talked about on the previous slides, but probably in a more solid way because the children are getting a bit older and have a little bit more vocabulary. This is my favorite, fractions. How much pizza do you want? All of it. I actually had a little boy say that. My grandson said that last weekend. I said, do you want a quarter of a pizza or half a pizza? He went, no, I want all of it. And I'm like, oh, okay. But so then we did start talking actually about dividing it up and how many children we had and how many pieces of pizza we needed to cut. There were 2 children and me. And so we started talking about thirds, which actually did get quite complicated. Obviously, you're not going to dive straight into that. These boys are 10 and 7, so a little bit older. But you can demonstrate with your blocks. You can demonstrate with cutting sandwiches into quarters. If you really want to get a little bit further along, you can cut them into 8s, but halves and quarters is probably a good place to start. Cutting apples. Yeah, I think cake or pizza is a good one. Play-Doh, especially if you make a big lump of Play-Doh and you've got to split it between 3 or 4 children, then breaking it into even pieces. And then you can also start to talk about size, not just the fraction, oh, I'll give you a quarter of it, but making them all the same size so that they appear equal. And then you can talk about things being equal rather than bigger or smaller. And I'm sure this is all stuff that especially those of you that work with children, but also parents out there that are learning alongside your children. I'm sure these are things that you do and say all day, every day. So really, it's just, I guess tonight is just to highlight to you how many of those things you do on a daily basis that are maths, and how much knowledge you are giving to children when you say something like, you need to eat half of your sandwich before you can get down from the table, or you need to eat a little bit more before you get down from the table. Those conversations that you have with children, you probably have all the time. So, final word, make maths fun. Let them know that they know stuff. Just like, hey, wow, you just counted that. That's amazing. Oh, great. I saw you put 4 plates on the table. That's so cool. Well done. And just really make it a positive experience. And as Angie says, making learning maths fun grows your child's confidence in their abilities and promotes a positive attitude that can last a lifetime. And I think if I'd had that positive attitude before I went to school, I wouldn't have felt like quite such a dummy when I didn't do very well at maths. So that's it from me, apart from, I think now Sam's going to show me where to find the chat so that we can have some questions and answers. I hope that made sense. I did feel very nervous, but thank you for bearing with me.
That was great. So, yeah, we're now opening the room. Thank you so much, JJ. That was very informational, and I can perhaps try applying and make maths simple and fun for my child. So, we're now opening the room for your questions. Okay. Yeah, that was a wonderful session. Thank you. Oh, thank you, Utra.
That was very kind. Thank you.
Thank you, Trudy, rather. Fascinating information. Thank you. Right. Do you have any questions or clarifications that you'd like to raise? Maybe some you'd like to ask for suggestions on different ways that we can incorporate maths. You can Hi there, Trudy.
Hi, it's Trudy from Dunedin.
Hi, Trudy.
Absolutely fascinating information, and I can already see how I'm going to apply. I'm very excited to go back to work tomorrow. I've got a little 3-year-old that I have with me primarily, but her twin sisters who are 6, I can also see how I can immediately adapt your information to make it a little bit more challenging for them.
Right.
Especially when it comes to getting dressed or being that independent, those independent things like you need 2 pairs, you need 2 socks, you need 5 toes in your socks.
Yeah.
And that's just going to open up more language, more vocabulary. Yeah, just very exciting. So thank you so much for that.
Oh no, you're very welcome. Hopefully I'll be able to see some of your learning stories as they come through. Get Carly to share them with me.
Oh, fantastic. Yes, absolutely.
And if you want to revisit too, I think Sam, the webinar will go up on the website. Is that right?
Yes, they will definitely get a copy of the recording in their email. So please be on the lookout for that.
Perfect. Well, thanks, Trudy. I'm really glad that you found it inspiring. That's what we hope from these sessions.
No, thank you.
All right. Does anyone else have any questions that you'd like to raise? I know I should have listened to this webinar before my little one went to school today, because they had their they were being asked, oh, which is longer or shorter. So had
Yeah.
I listened to this webinar before, it would have been easier to teach them those concepts. So
Yes.
you can actually teach them maths everywhere, like when you're just sitting about, and it doesn't have to
Yeah.
be textbook and all, make it boring. So
No,
thank you.
exactly.
I totally agree. I
Yeah.
totally agree because it's almost like opening up another language, another treasure trove of language, especially when you have, well, I have a little 3-year-old that I'm caring for, and there are conversations just waiting to be had. It's almost like
Yeah.
unlocking another door and
Yeah,
going
it
that
is.
little step further.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. It's like you have this house and there are rooms, and
Yeah.
you've
That
just
you
given
haven't
us,
yet discovered.
you've just, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, and all the information's there, and it's like you've given us a new set of keys
Yeah.
to go and unlock those doors, and it's gonna be fabulous.
Oh,
Thank
that's
you.
fantastic. I'm really, yeah, that's I've made up. But it is,
Wonderful.
it is, and it's all about language, which we know our children are absolutely desperate for language. You know, we know how excited they get by the speed they talk when they actually first start to really use words. So by providing them with all this additional language, which then we can link to those concepts, we're really giving them a solid foundation to build on. And it is really exciting. Like you say, Trudy, it's just like, oh, what's going to happen today? And how can we, and you'll be surprised too, how many different ways your 3-year-old uses maths. And over the coming
Oh,
weeks, you'll notice
yeah.
that more and more.
And
So
she's
it
so
won't just
keen to
be,
learn. And
yeah,
it's also like we were baking, and she loves being involved. And
yes,
already I can see I've used measuring concepts and the language in there, but this has just given me a little bit more in terms of
yes,
curves and lines and counting people. How many people do we have for dinner? How many pieces would you like? Because quite often we make pancakes and then she asks me to cut them into pizza pieces.
right,
So
yeah,
it's just taking it that step further as well. And but
yeah.
also, right, I can see that using this additional language that I'm going to take away and think about, it can also help my little one relate to her older sisters who are just at school,
Yeah,
um, and also perhaps even divert, um, you know, what would you say, divert competitiveness, or someone getting left out, or someone getting bored and
yeah.
reverting to um, um, you know um,
Being tricksy.
yeah, being tricksy, that's the word. So I mean, if you give them some games to work out, then if you challenge them, then they immediately, you have their attention.
Yeah,
It's almost like, you don't when you don't have the language, you know oh, really excited.
yeah.
I
Well,
don't want to, I'm aware I don't want to take up the time for other people, so
but too with those older children as well, with children who have got cutting skills and drawing or colouring
mm,
skills. Things
mm,
my immediate thought as you were talking, Trudy, went to the Ko-Fi-Fi patterns that we sent out
mm,
for Father's Day. Um,
yes,
they're symmetrical. So you can get the older girls, if you wanted
mm,
to colour them in and then cut them in half for them, and then the younger children can match them up. It's really, it doesn't have to be expensive
absolutely.
either. It can be really simple. And I find that when the children, I mean, I did a few years as a primary school teacher, just new
Mm,
entrants, but I found that when the children had real input into making the activity that they were ultimately going to learn from, they had a lot more buy-in. And I think that's, that your older girls, the older sisters, can help make things for the younger one to play with, and they can
and they
teach
love
them
doing
to
that.
do them. Yeah.
And they love doing that. And it's just having the ideas
Yeah.
to give them
Yeah.
to to trigger, because they love drawing, and you can also look at what they're drawing and make a mathematical conversation out of it. You can,
Absolutely.
without it being too complex.
Yeah,
But
exactly. Without it being over their heads, and without it being, as Sam said, without it being that sit down and have a textbook or a lesson. We're not, even in the early years of primary school, we're moving away from that. I hope at a relatively steady speed, I think, because we realize that children just engage with things so much more when it's something that they can actually grab hold of, and but also when it's something that is tangible in their minds, when they can see it happening in real life, not just this conversation that the teacher has with them kind of thing. So yeah,
absolutely. And the children I care for very much want to grab onto concepts and to go with it, and to apply it to what they're doing.
Yeah.
So it's very very good.
And does anybody else have anything that they want to share, or any questions? You can always message me. I know our Education Angels ladies know how to get hold of me, but you can also catch us on, I think, Instagram, Facebook, all over the place, and you can call or text us at the office too if you have any more questions.
I think we're all good. But we'll be as usual, we will be sending a recording of this webinar, as well as the certificates of some resources to support your little one in teaching them maths concepts. So please check it out in the next few days, or in the next day or two. So yeah, thank you so much everyone for attending our webinar, and thank you JJ for facilitating this webinar. It's really informational. And had I known about these concepts before, I would have been a math wizard now.
Yeah.
I I wouldn't have been traumatized by numbers. But
yes, exactly. Yes. Just like, don't make me do my times tables.
True. Numbers make me dyslexic today.
Yeah. Actually, I can't write a phone number down without it getting the wrong way around. I have to be really careful. But no, I think it's just like you say, the trauma from school. Yeah, cool. Well, thank you. Yes, thanks, Sam, for all your help. That's been so cool that you helped me get through this. And to everybody who joined us, I really appreciate you sharing your time with us.
Thanks very much, JJ and Sam.
Thank you,
welcome.
Trudy.
Take care,
Thank you,
Trudy.
everyone.
Thank
Have a
you.
great
Bye-bye.
evening. Bye
Have a
bye.
great evening. Bye bye.
Ka kite, no?
Kia kite.